So much of the work comes down to how well do you understand what they are trying to do, their mission, their customers. Like, if you understand that, I find that the switching, it's not going to be easy, but it's significantly easier than it would be if you just kind of like, all right, well, now I'm wearing this hat. It has to have this kind of intrinsic piece of you that makes sense. You're like, okay, well, this is our mindset here.
This is The Anonymous Marketer, a podcast where we tackle the biggest questions from the B2B marketing community. But instead of bringing on guests for a quick chat, every question comes from an anonymous source. These are the questions B2B marketers have, but are afraid to ask. Let's start the conversation.
Hello, and welcome to The Anonymous Marketer. I'm your host, Kirsti Lang. Today, we are talking about something that I've seen popping up increasingly in my orbit, and that is fractional marketing work. Christina Garnett is our expert in resident today. Christina, hi. You're officially my first repeat guest on the show. Welcome.
I'm honored. Thanks for having me.
No, it's amazing. I was thinking about who is the one person that I want to have on immediately. And when this question popped up in the Anonymous Marketer inbox, I was like, yes, I know a fractional person who would be
Let's go.
Fractional person? Is that the thing? I don't know.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah. Christina is a fractional chief customer officer and advisor. She is the founder of Pocket CCO, which we're going to talk a lot about in this episode, I'm sure. She comes to the fractional marketing world with an impressive roster of experience. Most recently, she was the principal marketing manager for offline community and advocacy at HubSpot. Christina, thank you so much again for joining me. There is no one else that I would rather talk about this with. You are my favorite fractional person. But I must confess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I must confess. So I've seen you've been sharing a whole lot of wonderful articles on fractional work, and I've skimmed over some stuff, but I'm coming into this, I think, quite new. I don't fully understand the concept, so I'm really excited to unpack it a little bit further. Starting with the question for today's show. So if you are new to the show, some context. Every episode we tackle a question sent in by an anonymous marketer. Sometimes not anonymous, but mostly anonymous, because I think a lot of these are questions that folks don't want to be seen to be asking publicly. So they submit the questions via marketersindemand.com/anonymous, and then I will bring on an expert like Christina to help answer the question or solve their problem. So here's the question for today's show. Fractional work seems to be on the rise, especially in marketing. I'd love to know about this kind of work and how to get into it. Is this a trend that is going to last? So there is a lot to unpack here, but Christina,
I'd love to
know. It's a great question. Yeah, and it's another one that I've kind of been seeing this floating around my orbit, and yeah, I think it is very, very timely to talk about it now. I think let's just go right in and start with the fundamentals. So what exactly does it mean to be someone who works fractionally?
Yeah, so think of it as like a fraction of time. That's usually the easiest way to do it. So instead of saying like, hey, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that, I'm going to be joining this specific company with this role, what you're doing instead is you're going in, you're getting embedded, but you're doing it at a fraction of the time. And a lot of the time where we're doing this, we're seeing this at like leadership levels or like basically middle management on up, where they need to be embedded. Potentially they need to lead a team, but either they don't have full head count or they don't have enough budget, but they know that they need that person.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're looking for. And there's a lot of confusion around fractional work because we have freelance and we have consulting and we have advising, and it feels very murky.
Yes.
And it kind of is. A lot of times what we've had in the past is fractional has really been more of a CMO. There are a ton of fractional CMOs. You could throw a rock and hit one.
On LinkedIn, yes. Don't throw rocks,
LinkedIn, yeah.
but if
Don't
you
throw
did.
rocks, but like theoretically you would hit one. And so what winds up happening, and that honestly makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of CMOs out there. There's a lot of people who have been in the marketing space forever and they've gotten to that part of their career. But we also know that the lifespan of a CMO at a company is quite short, actually shorter than most other C-suite seats. And so
I didn't know that.
Yes. If you look, I think it's around like 1.5 to 2 years is like the lifespan of a CMO at a company. And usually you see that turnover really fast. And we see that kind of ripple in effects of like, there's a lot of rebrands because a new CMO comes in and wants to leave their mark. And they need something splashy and big to kind of stay, for lack of a better phrase. And so with the economy the way that it is, I'm going to answer a second part of that question is like, is this a hype or is it going to actually keep going? It's going to keep going. And I can explain why. You are seeing tons and tons of companies laying people off, having to make drastic cuts, but they still have to keep the wheels running, moving. Yes. They still need to keep the lights on. And AI, no matter what the promise is, AI can't do a lot of that work. And so I think what you're going to continue to see, and what I'm already seeing, is these companies are coming in and being like, I don't have money for a full head count. I don't have money for another person on my C-suite, but I desperately need that advice. But also, more than that, I need someone who can execute. And so that's what we're talking about fractional. So for me, when I started thinking about it, when I knew I was ready to move to the next stage in my career, I really had to figure out what I wanted. And so I was looking at other jobs, I was looking at other roles, and nothing really excited me. And it became very clear that I wasn't wanting to leave HubSpot and join somewhere else. I wanted to build something on my own. And so I would recommend anyone on this who's listening to this do this. Write your dream job description. What do you want to do? What do you want to focus on? What impact do you want to create? I wrote my full dream job description with like everything I would be responsible for, all the KPIs, the work I'd be doing on the daily, not just advising, but the execution. I put all of it into ChatGPT and said, what would you call this person?
I love that.
And ChatGPT said, this is a chief customer officer, which was weird for me because like that makes sense, but I'm the marketer who didn't want to be a CMO. And you kind of feel like that's the only path you have as a marketer is like that's the end of the road. But it really isn't. And depending on what you want to do and what you love to do and where your strengths are, there's so many other paths that you can take that I think Fractional provides a really great opportunity for, because there's a lot of CCOs, well, not a lot, but there's quite a few CCOs. And I was one of the first Fractional CCOs because when I looked at the market, there's a lot of companies that just don't have the headcount, don't have the budget, and are not at the size to warrant having a full chief customer officer on their team. They would much rather spend that money on a CFO, on a CMO. They know they need to take care of the customer, but they're never going to have a full-time seat for that person. And they know that, and it's okay. Yeah. So how can someone provide the embedded services and the leadership and the execution and knowledge to be able to handle that seat, but at a fraction of the time? And so I specifically look to determine, all right, well, I think there's a need in the market. I think there's always going to be a need for someone to be the voice of the customer, to make sure that someone's advocating for them and pushing for them and making sure we're actually not only taking the feedback, but we're doing something proactively with it.
Yes.
But then also, what is my ICP? What is my ideal customer profile going to be if I know for full well I'm walking in knowing there's never going to necessarily be a full seat for me? Okay, fine. But who are the people I could help? And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to build, while I was at HubSpot, I had a lot of people who tried to poach me. Hey, Christina, we'd love to do this. We'd love for you to do that.
I'm not surprised by this at all.
But then they would also like have the caveat of, but I doubt we can afford you. Or I doubt you would leave for us. And so I really kept that in the back of my mind while I was building, thinking like, what is this? And so I specifically set up my business, Pocket CCO, for agencies and startups, for the very people who were like, Christina, I would love to have you in my pocket and just pull you out whenever I needed you.
It is
the best name. Which is why it's called Pocket CCO, because people were like, I just want you in my pocket. And I was like, well, we can do that. And so
sure. I'm tiny.
It's tiny. Oh, my door. But for that reason, it provides an opportunity for me to speak directly to the need of my clients and my prospective clients, where you can get my expertise for a fraction of the cost that it would for a full-time person at a fraction of the time. But it also means you're getting like dedicated hours from me. You're not getting like, oh, is Christina on her lunch break? Or is she doing this, or is she on PTO? It's, if I give you those hours, those are head down advisory, execution, leadership. Like, you're getting full impact hours. And so it's a steal for them because it's cheaper than a full-time employee. They still get someone who can create impacts and has the knowledge and experience to really make waves quickly. And it's an opportunity for also people that have been in the corporate space to still have impact, but have impact on their own terms. Because now instead of impacting one company, I'm impacting multiple. I'm able to have a footprint in all of them, which is really lovely. So I get the impact, but I get the flexibility. I get to work with a really amazing team. And what's lovely too is I'm not competitive with people. Because how many times have you had a job where you come in and people see you as a threat? Or there's a new manager, you get a new manager and you're like, this could go one of a couple ways.
Yes.
As a fractional, I don't want to ever go back in-house full time. So when I come in to help you, I don't want your job. I promise I don't want your job. I want to help you be better. Use me as a weapon or as a tool to make your work even better.
I love that so much. I love that so much because you're upskilling the team, because you do see yourself as you're going to move on. Like, you're here for a couple of months, maybe a year or two, and you're going to move on, and you have helped a person. You've built your network. This is so fascinating to me because I often think about where could I go from Buffer? Like, it's going to be very difficult to find a more senior role at a company that does kind of offer the flexibility and the kind of work that I want to do. And often, me moving into a more senior marketing role, I kind of see my path. Okay, can I be like a director of marketing or a CMO or a marketing lead? And I don't have a lot of that like fundamental growth analytics. Like, my brain just isn't wired that way. And I don't have that level of experience having pivoted from journalism. So I don't have that like groundwork. But this is so great to me because you've almost opened up a path now. So instead of me being like, okay, if I did want to move on from Buffer, I definitely don't. Haley, I'm fine. I'm very happy.
Buffer is a great company. Speaking of,
good.
It's a great company.
But the market changes. Like, if I did, if something were to happen, if I did have to move on, it would be very difficult for me. I kind of see my path as, okay, freelancing or consulting. But then I'm kind of stepping back into quite a junior role for, often a lot of the time as a writer, that would be what I'm doing. I'd be writing SEO blog posts and stuff like that. And that would be great. That would be fun. But I wouldn't be having an impact on that senior level that you were talking about. I wouldn't kind of be building my portfolio. I'd be building it horizontally rather than building it up. So this is absolutely fascinating. I have so many questions, but the one that has popped up for me right now is, when you were working fractionally with multiple companies, as would be the goal, I imagine, how do you deal with the context switching? Because that I would imagine is quite difficult.
It can be. I've worked in social for so long, and I've done agency work where I had multiple clients, and so I'd have to jump from like brand voice to brand voice.
Got you.
So I find that I essentially have like all of those personalities in my head. Like, and I know, and I'm like, all right, this is the hat I'm wearing for this meeting, and we're going into this. But I find that it really comes from the deeper the understanding you have, the easier it is to switch, because you have such a strong grasp on what that is. So I switch to that, but I have such a core understanding of what that is that I can go there. So if I'm going to go from like funny social to serious social to like news social, I have to have a very core understanding of what that looks like, instead of just being like, all right, now I'm going to be funny. It has to be so much more than that.
That's so true. That is such a transferable skill.
Yeah. I think that really comes down to it. I think there is a huge opportunity there for people to really kind of showcase what their needs are. But it really comes down to, so much of the work comes down to, how well do you understand what they are trying to do, their mission, their customers. Like, if you understand that, I find that the switching, it's not going to be easy, but it's significantly easier than it would be if you just kind of like, all right, well, now I'm wearing this hat. It has to have this kind of intrinsic piece of you that makes sense. You're like, okay, well, this is our mindset here. And I find that the one thing I will say is, with the switching, but also just handling multiple, you will realize if you were a structure girly very fast.
Oh yeah, team structure girly.
You have to be. You have to be. Like I thought I loved spreadsheets before. I am such a spreadsheet girly now. Like, I have spreadsheets for everything. Like, I have like, because you have to be organized on a completely different level to be able to do it successfully.
Yes.
But that's another thing that I find, because a lot of people want to go fractional, and I think that they want to because it's trendy, not realizing what they're actually signing up for.
It is. It's not easy.
It's not easy,
Yeah.
but I think you need to ask yourself some core questions. So, because there's a lot of people who are like, I'm a consultant, and then they're like, no, I'm a fractional. I'm like, those are not the same thing.
Yes, this was one of my questions. Let's get into that.
So, a consultant, you are advising, you are helping, maybe you're writing documentation, but you are not executing.
Mm.
You are holding the hand, you're mentoring, but you are not the one that's executing. Versus fractional, you're going to be consulting and advising, but you're also going to be embedded in the team.
I love that.
So you're going to be executing. So what I like to ask people to do if they're trying to figure out what's right, or if I'm talking to a client and they don't know how to engage with me, I'll say, do you want my brain? Consulting and advising. Or do you want my brain in my hands? Fractional. And another reason I like fractional is, and I know a lot of people are feeling this when they're talking about like leveling up in their career. There's a lot of companies where being a leader means you are a people manager. Period.
Yes.
End of discussion. I never wanted to just be a people manager. I wanted to be a player coach. I want to keep at least one toe in the trench working. And I can mentor, I can people manage, I can do all the things, but I want to keep that part of my brain. I don't want to delegate all the work. I want to keep my hands dirty.
Yes. Oh man, it's like you're preaching to the choir here.
And so there's so many jobs that like I could be a director, I could be a VP, I could be a C-suite. And for certain companies, that would mean me giving up the doing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. I want to do the doing, and I want to help others do the doing. Like I want to be that player coach. And so the roles that I've taken on as a fractional, those have been the ones where I'm like, is this a player coach situation, or is this I make decks and I'm a people manager and I come up with a vision, but like I don't do anything because let me recommend someone else for you for that, because that is not me. That's not what I want to, that's not the game I want to play. And so I find that opens up a lot more doors of fractional too. So if you're looking to grow and you're like, I don't know if I should do this, or I'm not seeing growth in a way that I know that I'd be happy, look at fractional.
I love that. That so much of what you just said now is resonating. I think so many companies kind of make the mistake of promoting people who are excellent at their craft into managerial positions. And it's just like, what's the phrase? Square peg, round hole. And that's something I love managing people. I have previously been a manager and it's great, but it does kind of it takes you, as someone once told me, I think it was one of my first managers said, managing someone is like 15% of your job. And that does, when you're managing a big team, it takes you out of the trenches, it takes you away from the front lines. And I think it's very difficult to build a big picture strategy, for me, at least. I'm sure this is not the case for everyone, when you are not on the front lines as well, when you are not
100%.
Seeing the everyday impact of your social or your marketing, or, you can ingest the reports, but if you're not talking to the customers, for example, there's a big disconnect there. And I personally would find it difficult to bridge the chasm. So
completely agree. And I think for a chief customer officer, it's also a perfect position for that too, because a chief customer officer, by their very nature, should stay close to the customer. You shouldn't have layer on layer on layer on layer in between you. You have to stay focused on their needs and be able to work with everyone in between to say, like, we're on the same page. We all want to collaborate. We all want to make this work. What does that look like? And so I think you're going to see a ton more fractional roles, because you're seeing people leave who are really smart, who are really hard workers, who are really great executors, and they either can't grow where they currently are because of the economy, or they're looking for work, but they are the people who always got it done. They are in a position now to bet on themselves, and there's a lot of companies who need a lot of work to be done, but just are not, for whatever reason, do not want to put a full head count towards it. And so, and I don't think it's just a CCO thing. I don't think it's just a CMO thing. I'm seeing a lot more fractional, like, social lead.
Yes, that's something I've seen as well, which is super exciting, because I think there is not a lot of there. I mean, it's still, and this is something I could do an entire podcast about, but like there's not a huge amount of career progression at kind of more traditional companies for social folks. I think social is still seen as quite a junior entry level role, which is ridiculous because social is so difficult and so important. And I think, as people kind of move upwards through that path, they're kind of chafing with, okay, but what am I, a senior social media manager for the rest of my life? So this is such a great option for someone in that role as well.
I come from a background in social, and I've done social since I've pivoted away from it. It just hasn't been my full-time role before. And a lot of the frustration I saw was very similar to that. Like you kind of treat it as a junior, but you're also always on call, and it's hard for you to unplug. But I think that social media has been, I know, social media has been around long enough for leadership to create ladders as to what it looks like for growth. And very few companies have done that. So if you are in a position where you are not seeing a ladder for what that looks like for you, you have two choices. You can either create your ladder and figure out what that could look like within your own company, or better yet, you just throw the ladder away. You throw the ladder away. That's what's so beautiful about going independent that I've absolutely adored is when I was in the corporate space, it's just the nature of the beast where, all right, well, what's next? All right, cool, but what's after that? And what's after that? Here, it's just the work. I just want to do really great work and work with really brilliant people and do really cool things with them. And they pay me. And that's it. Like, going independent was me, like, it's the whole, like, Jedi looking at the fire, but the fire has the ladder in it. And I'm just watching the ladder burn. And they're like, I never have to care about it again. Ever.
And you have reached Jedi enlightenment. You're not even a master. You're like, what was the player coach? You were a master Padawan. No, that doesn't make any sense.
But it's true though. You wind up focusing back on the work, which is honestly what should be important anyway. But in a setting where they kind of give you carrots to grow so that you do even more and more work, the ladder is what keeps people going. But now we're seeing in the career space, the ladder is dying because it's taking longer to get promoted, or there isn't a structure of what growth looks like for them, especially from social media. Like I've seen tons of articles about the social media manager is the next CMO. I don't disagree with that, but how? Because you're not going to get anyone that's not bought in to buy in unless they see a ladder. All right, but what does that ladder actually look like? What would be the next tier? All right, cool. What skills do they have to add to their portfolio of work for you to trust them as you're promoting them and moving them up?
Exactly.
I've yet to see it. So if we're going to do that, if we're going to have that argument, amazing. But you need to build that ladder and make that argument about, like, but here's how they get there. We can't just make these statements of, like, I'm going to be the next president. How are you going to do it? What are you doing to get there? And so for those who are listening to this, like, this sounds great, but I don't want to be fractional, but I do want to grow my business. Then what I need you to do is I need you to figure out where you are now, where you want to be, and create that ladder for yourself. Because if someone was going to create that ladder for you, they would have done it for you by now. They would have given it to you by now.
I'm trying not to interrupt you by going like, because I have a tendency to go like, yeah, and then these incredible sound bites have like me snickering in the background. So I'm just like being very quiet because there are so many moments here that are like, yeah, this is amazing. I'm very excited
for everyone listening. I mean, I want this industry to do well, and I think that we've made a lot of great strides, especially in the social space. But we are reactive and not proactive. And I want us to take a step for ourselves and for our careers to really look at the work that we've done and figure out where you want to be on the other side. And if that means you want to be in corporate for the rest of your life, go you. That's awesome. If you want to run away from corporate like it is a disease, go you. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer because it really is up to you. However, be proactive about what that's going to look like for you. Like if you are wanting a promotion, how are you working to prove that you deserve that promotion? What is the impact statistics? Are you keeping up with all of your wins? How are you updating things so that the leadership above you knows what you're doing so they can't ignore it even if they want to?
Yeah.
If you want to like prove what your like ladder looks like. So that's the thing, like where do you want to be in 5 years? How do you want to get there? is the actual question you need to be answering.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you could say anything in 5 years. You could also be in the exact same job in the exact same role in 5 years.
And that's fine. Like, if that's,
And that's fine if that's what you want to do.
That's valid. Yeah.
But if you want more, I think that's kind of the message of this is like, if you want more, you have to actively go to get more and realize that even when you do all the things right, the business you work for may not give you what you deserve.
Yeah.
And then that's an opportunity for you to be like, have I hit my ceiling? Should I leave? And if I leave, what does that look like?
Exactly. So coming back to the actual how-to of it, someone's listening to this, I can feel them. I can sense them. They are going, Christina, you are talking to me. What next? What do I do? I'm quitting my job. Now what?
Okay. Get your ducks in a row. So write your job description. What is everything that you want? Put it into ChatGPT. What would you call this person? And then look for that role in the market. So do social listening, look for jobs that are available, look to see if there's any trends that you're seeing. Is there demand for what that person could offer? And then you're going to ask 3 questions. 1, what is the hole in the market? So is there a hole for that specific thing? 2, how are you going to fill that hole? So like, how does your offering or service do that? 3, why are you the perfect person to do that? It's not enough to offer it, because eventually this fractional thing is going to be a red ocean like everything else. Everyone loves to see a trend and jump on. Fine, do you. But you have to be able to differentiate. If you're saying like, Christina, I know there's a lot of fractional CMOs, but I also want to be a fractional CMO. Amazing. I'm not going to talk you out of it. What I am going to talk you into, though, is knowing how to differentiate yourself. Like, you're going to find out what your strengths and weaknesses are very, very quickly, because you are going to have to differentiate yourself so you don't get stuck in the noise. How are you different? Is it your ICP? Is it your services? Is it your experience? Like, what is it that's going to stand you out so that when other people are seeing, like, all of these people say the fractional CMOs, which one should I hire? You need to be so confident and firm in how you are different. You have to do that. Second, you have to have all of your assets together before you talk to somebody. You can't just say like, hey, I'm going to do this. You need to treat yourself like a client and like a business immediately. Sales deck, website, what is your tone of voice? What does it look like? What are your brand colors? What is the name of your company?
Brand colors.
It can honestly
Getting me
just
hot
be
under the collar here.
I love brand colors.
Love brand colors.
But doing all of that, you have to really set yourself apart, because you can have all the experience in the world and they're like, hey, tell us more about what you do. And you're just like, here's a Google Doc. Versus someone else who has the exact same offering and they have a website, they have a sales deck. You could do amazing work, but first impression matters. If you are competing with other people for the exact same job, the assets that you have prepared to give to them is going to set you apart immediately. And they are going to see the assets you give them before they hire you as a direct indication of the kind of work that they can expect if they hire you. And that may be true or false, but that is how they're going to do. That's how they're going to treat you. Next, follow up. Always follow up. There's a lot of people who lose deals just because they didn't follow up.
Yeah, because people are busy, right? They move on. And the first person who followed up with them was like, oh, I'll just go with this person.
Or this person cares enough or was like, had stick-to-itiveness enough to just come back. And then don't be passive aggressive about it. Like, if you're following up, be like, hey, just wanted to check on this. Not sure if y'all were still leaning in this direction or not. Fine, either way. I just wanted to let you know.
Is there anything else you need? Yeah.
Is there anything else you need? Do you have any other further questions? But none of this like, oh, I guess you haven't responded to any of my emails. I guess we got to break up.
No, please don't send me a breakup.
Why are we
Taylor
doing
Swift
that?
gift. I don't want your gifts.
Why are we doing that? That's
follow
weird.
Up people.
So weird. But having all that ready to go, really think about the process of what does it look like when you do that, and having your pitch ready to go. Because it isn't enough to announce, and it isn't enough to tell people, hey, I'm doing this now. You have to tell them what you're doing, who it's for, how it helps. So they have what they need to be able to elevate you, amplify you, and send you work. And your network, I have a lot of people who've asked me like, well, how do you get leads? It is your network. It is always your network. Be nice, be kind, be generous with your network. Grow it with no intention of them giving you anything back in return. but help. If you come from a place of help, you showcase your knowledge, you're going to grow. People are going to start to trust you, and they're going to realize why they should work with you, why they should talk to you. But that is honestly at the heart of it.
Do you think that getting active on social, and whether it's LinkedIn or whatever platform makes the most sense for you in your industry, is nice to have or a need to have if you want to move into fractional work?
It's a must-have.
Okay.
There has to be something. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be social, but there has to be something beyond your website where people can find you. Maybe it's a podcast interview. Maybe it's a blog. But whatever it is, there has to be something where you are sharing knowledge beyond, hey, call me. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. Because we all know what ads look like. Of course, you're going to tell me how great you are in an ad. Of course you are. But that doesn't give me an ad very rarely gives me enough information to build trust and to understand this person knows what they're talking about. So whatever you're doing to have that set up, it needs to be how am I instilling trust with others based on my knowledge? What does that look like for you? And it could be an email newsletter. It could be all these things, but there has to be something. I would say LinkedIn's wild right now.
It's a weird place. It's weird.
It's a
I love
very weird
LinkedIn,
place.
but we're having a moment right now, me and LinkedIn. We're not breaking
It's
up.
having a midlife crisis, if that's probably the best way to describe it. It doesn't
It's
know
just
what it
border
is.
Holly.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers.
Which is fine, but it's a great way for you to show what you're doing. It's a great way to highlight the work you're doing, and you do need a place where you can connect with others. It could be a community, it could be LinkedIn, but there needs to be tethers. How can you're building an ecosystem around what you're building so that people can find you, so that people can learn from you. And so I find that makes a huge difference. So social's a really nice to have, lean towards must have, but it's only a must have for the people who feel and this is sad, but there's always going to be a contingency of people who think that you are smart just because of how many followers you have.
Yeah, I mean, it does add some gravitas. Yeah, some of the folks I've seen on LinkedIn with crazy followers are not that smart. So, sorry, just being judgmental publicly. Maybe we need to cut that.
It's Monday. We're having that day.
It's Monday. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I do also love what you said about being active in communities. So if you're, if it feels a bit icky for you to kind of be going and posting on LinkedIn or whatever the case is, jumping into a community in your niche and answering people's questions, being active there and helping, as to your point, helping, just giving of yourself, showcasing your expertise. I think a community is a great space to do that if social is just not for you. But this podcast is for marketers, so I feel like
we're kind of stuck. We have to, we have to be there anyway. I will say there's a fantastic community for fractional pros. If anyone's looking, it's called Fractional United. They're absolutely lovely. It's a Slack channel you can go in and all the things. If you just search LinkedIn Fractionals United, you can find more information about it. But it's a really core group of people who just really love to help. And that's what's been also really lovely is going back to that whole we don't see each other's competition. We really just want to grow and do our own thing, and we're not seeing each other as a zero-sum game. I can do this and you can do this. It isn't there's only one director position. We have to fight to the death for it. Because of that, everyone's really kind and generous and answers questions and is thoughtful and isn't territorial, which is really lovely. Because we see someone coming out into this world and it's very much I see you betting on yourself. That's awesome. I'm rooting for you.
That's amazing.
So there's a lot of parts of the business world that are not like that. And so it's been really lovely to be a part of this space. I definitely did not create Fractional. I definitely came in while it was pre-established, but it's been really lovely. Everyone's been really kind to me, which is always nice.
That's amazing. And you are there. So if people are jumping in and they want to find you, that's a good place to do it. Christina, we've covered everything I wanted to ask and then some. If you could speak directly to the person who sent in this question, what would you say to them?
Figure out what you want. Don't feel like Fractional needs to be a new box that you put yourself into. Make sure it really fits what you want to do. So whether that be Fractional, whether that be consulting or advisory, whether it be a mixture of both, and you have some clients that you do Fractional, some clients you do consulting, which is what I do. But if you're going to leave corporate to do something, make sure it is as true to yourself and how you want to work as humanly possible, because just choosing that will eliminate so many headaches in the future. I can't recommend it enough, but don't feel like you have to be fractional because it's the new thing. Really be true to who you are and what you want. And like I said, write that dream job description. It will tell you volumes about what you really want to do and what you don't want to do. And I think that'll help guide you in the right direction.
I love that. That is beautiful. I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling just really optimistic about the future of people in content, people in social, people in customer facing roles. So looking back, it's been a couple of months since you've made the change. How are you feeling about it? Do you feel good? Good call.
I love it. I can honestly say going independent is the best professional decision I've ever made in my life.
I love that. That makes me happy. I'm so happy that you're happy and thriving. And you also said something else about how you think this is going to be big. You're going to start seeing fractional folks even more popping up even more. Is this the year of the fractional? Can we get a sassy headline out of this?
It is. Yeah. It is absolutely the year of the fractional. And I would also say this the year of the independent. I think a lot of people are deciding to take their own fate in their own hands. They're betting on themselves. I think you're going to see this year and next, I think you're going to see a wave of people deciding either because they're looking for work and things aren't working out for them, or they're realizing that corporate is just not giving them what they wanted, or they got what they thought they wanted and it's not filling their cup the way that they expected. I think you're going to see more and more people betting on themselves this year and next. You're the independent, you're the fractional.
This is awesome. Christina, if people want to find you, aside from the amazing fractional community that you just referenced, where are you? You are on LinkedIn? You are on
I'm on
X,
LinkedIn.
Twitter?
I'm on Twitter at that Christina G. I have podcasts called Fan of the Fans and The Woman's MBA. You can find those on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then I'm just hanging out at pocketcco.com if you want to learn more about what I do and the services that I offer. But thank you so much for your time today. It was always great chatting.
It was brilliant. Thank you so much, Christina. I really appreciate it. Folks, if you have a question that you would like to send in and you want a wonderful human and amazing expert like Christina to come in and answer it for you, please do send it to me at marketersindemand.com/anonymous. I'm prepping a whole bunch of new shows, so it will be amazing to have your question come in soon. Christina, thank you so much. Have a great Monday.
Thanks for checking out this episode of The Anonymous Marketer. This show is part of Marketers in Demand, a network of podcasts featuring the world's leading B2B marketers. Unlock your full potential as a B2B marketer by going to marketersindemand.com.